it would take a long time for them to upgrade the infrastructure because it's all in sort of like, let's say, rusty. Russia is more or less at full production now. So even if a deal is done, it's like, well, okay, so what? The capacity to build ships, even if you want to build them, is only half of what it used to be. In 5 years, some 30, 35%, 40%, somewhere in there, of the OSV fleet is over 20 years old. It's scrap heap stuff, right?
All right, offshore services. Hey people, can you give us an update on the offshore service thesis? Permian seems to plateau regarding data of HFI research, but are there some new factors to consider, like Venezuela maybe ramping up supply? Argentina is hopefully ramping up. What about Russia after the war is over? The offshore service vessel supply, offshore wind capacity growth seems to slow down in some places, and politics like the new American government will not expand offshore wind further, so there will be some idle offshore wind ships to enter the offshore oil service market. See the part of the article where the blah 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 blah. There's an article there. As always, thanks for your content. That's from Socken.
Chris, seems to me that Venezuela is going to take some. So assuming there's a US friendly government comes in there, right? So that's a big assumption. But even so, it would take a long time for them to upgrade the infrastructure because it's all in sort of like, let's say, rusty. It's old. It's been very little
years.
Years. Yeah.
Years. So we had, just for some reference on that, a gentleman who's become quite well known to us in El Salvador when we had our event in El Salvador, who simultaneously also lived in Venezuela and has done business there, an investment banker. And we were running through basically that very thing and the various assets that exist in Venezuela, which if you're going to make a play on Venezuela is what you would go and buy, keeping in mind that if you buy those assets, you're going to need to spend. So like you might buy an asset for, let's just say, $10 million, a refinery or something like that. You will need to go in and spend another 10 at least to bring it up to functioning capacity. And so there's both capital and time, remembering that the expertise has fled and left the country. So you don't have domestic expertise to actually bring much of the infrastructure up to speed. And you also don't yet have the CapEx in order to bring up that. Now, you could ship in American companies or Russians or Chinese or whatever it is. That's all true, but it still doesn't derail from the fact that this would be a multi-year, probably 5-year process in order to get Venezuelan oil production anywhere near where it was in the pre-Chavez era. So, right for a year now, and certainly for the next 5 years, I see it as being largely a non-issue. Only in that if we do have some political change, then you might want to go and look at who would participate in that and maybe make a long play on it. But again, this is huge capital expenditure. The places, the infrastructure is stuffed.
Well, maybe the upside, if that did happen, then be a shitload spent on oil infrastructure. So you go and start buying, investing.
Yeah, and then we go and buy into the companies that are doing that.
Yeah,
potentially, depending on their valuations. But
this happened. This happened before I worked for CapEx, when I was involved in that Iranian startup, going into Iran, characterizing oil wells and stuff like that. And I can tell you, it's not overnight that you will know about things months in advance of them happening because they have to announce all this sort of stuff. There's all sorts of sort of signs and flags that you would see before you'd consider going in and thinking about it.
And this is all on the proviso, of course, there's a US-friendly administration there. Yeah, who's going to want to go invest when you got these current idiots there? Like, no one. Now, okay, so that's where we see it, sitting in our underpants 10,000 miles away. Argentina, folks, so it's going to take a while to bring online of any significance. And I wouldn't say primarily, but a lot of it is a gas. So US shale is gas and oil, probably more oil than gas. Argentinian is primarily gas, and to a less extent oil. Yeah, go and look at YPF. Look at all what they've been, all their banter, and it's all about LPG and compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, etc. That sort of they play second fiddle to oil production. So, all right.
We've got some charts here.
Yeah, this is we'll get to the OSV thing after, but so the Russian thing. So you can see there's Russian. That's it.
Sorry.
There's Russian production. So it's about 5-7% below where it was pre-COVID. In fact, it's probably about 4%, 3% below where it was pre-Russian invasion, as in 2022. There. So the point being is that Russia is more or less at full production now, plus or minus. They've been selling the shit to Indians and the Chinese. It's like someone hasn't noticed. So even if a deal is done, it's like, well, okay, so what? The biggest thing there is probably to look out for there is the US. What's happened since Ukraine? It's look at OPEC has restrained themselves. Either they've pulled back. They've probably pulled back production. Likewise of Russia, because that's really part of OPEC, plus or minus. But it's the US has filled the void there again. So that's the elephant in the room. Solve that, folks. Solve the US and look, all that's Permian, huh? Solve the Permian, and we keep saying, folks, solve the Permian, you solve everything else.
Mm.
The final bit was about offshore vessel supply, and you've got this table again. I love these tables that you put in, Brad.
Well, this is some Tidewater, so but I have no reason to doubt Tidewater's bullshitting, because these figures all come from not themselves; they come from other third parties. The thing so what do we got here? Look at, hang on, active. What am I doing here? Okay, yes. PSVs. Average age, 16.4 years, right? Anchor handling tugs, about the same, 15 years. That's right at the bottom there, Lucas, yes. Now, over 20 years, off to Bangladesh to the scrap heap, or wherever they go, all right? So, near enough. No one wants to employ and especially like as of late, because there's been dramatic increases in the level of technology on these vessels in the last 10-15 years in terms of satellite positioning, all those sorts of things. Anyway, the point being is that fleet's aging. I think there's if you go to the next slide, Lucas. Yeah, it's not here, but anyway, I think in 5 years, some 30, 35%, 40%, somewhere in there, of the OSV fleet is over 20 years old. It's scrap heap stuff, right? Fine, but what's coming online? Is there a big increase in ships coming online? Well, look at those figures there. The right-hand side, that's the OSV order book. No, there's a few lined up, but at best, maybe 5% of the fleet will be replaced. No. Secondly, and this is not new, we've been through this before. So this is the number of active shipyards. Now, the same thing there, folks, applies to tankers, bulk carriers, etc., etc. The capacity to build ships, even if you want to build them, is only half of what it used to be. Now, yes, I could bring that capacity back online, but that takes time. More than 10 years. Okay, so that, I think, solves the question. So going back to OSVs, don't worry about this, a bit of a slack in capacity because of offshore wind. A lot of that stuff, a lot of OSVs used for offshore wind were specialized vessels anyway. but it's like a storm in a teacup. The big elephant in the room is that 5 years from now, a third of the OSV fleet is heading for Bangladesh.